Wish you could fly. Sorry, I'm going to start again. All kinds of birds make me wish we could fly. And then something inside, so strong. So as we look at the theme for Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa and Unity Kitchener, we're celebrating the soaring higher in 2023. With strength, love, and zeal, we recognize our wholeness. And what does it mean to each of you to celebrate those qualities within you? And how can you use those qualities to soar higher? We are one team, one community, reaching our greater potential. Don't just fly, soar. So I'd like to welcome back in a more formal way, Reverend Paul Hasselbeck. And C gave me very clear instructions that I could have 3 lines here for a bio, and I exceeded it because there's just too much to say. So Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck is a former Dean of Spiritual Education and Enrichment in Unity. And he is widely regarded as one of the leading authorities on the writings of Charles Fillmore and Unity metaphysics in general. He wrote Heart-Centered Metaphysics, the primary textbook for teaching metaphysics throughout the Unity movement. In addition to authoring and co-authoring 7 other spiritual books, the latest being Use the Truth You Know, Unity's Principles and Premise. So we have a master teacher with us today. He's a metaphysical coach, workshop leader, and teacher. He co-hosts a metaphysical program on internet radio. And in order to stay on top of all of this high frequency activity, he lists fitness at the top of his list of other interests. And I am beginning to understand why. You can go to Reverend Paul's website to learn more about his many offerings at www.paulhasselbeck.com. So please join me in a warm welcome, welcoming USCO and Unity Kitchener's longtime friend and guide, Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck, who will share his wisdom on the topic, Use the Truth You Know, and he will follow with a meditation. Welcome, Reverend Dr. Paul.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to be back. Wow. It's been what do they say now? It's been a minute, hasn't it? So let me get my slides going here. And I use those to guide my way. So hopefully you're seeing that. And I want to do a slideshow from the beginning. And I want to, there we go. So Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa. I am honored and delighted to be with you, and thank you for inviting me today. Maybe you didn't know it. Maybe some of you did, but today's the anniversary of Myrtle Fillmore's birth. So happy birthday, Myrtle. She was born August 6th, 1845, and she died at Unity Village, October 6th, 1931. And what an impact she had. You know, we talk about influencers these days. She was quite the influencer. So sit back, if you haven't already, relax. You might want to get out your cell phone, put it on silent, and put it on camera. You might want to take some pictures. My website is paulhasselbeck.com. My podcast is found at metaphysicalromp2.com. I do that with the Reverend Doctors Bill and Cher Holton. And my email address is alberthasselbeck@gmail.com. And I welcome you reaching out to me. So, use the truth you know. Use the truth you know. So the key there is you got to know some truth. In fact, when I'm training ministers or training licensed Unity teachers, I don't do that so much anymore, but when I was, you have to be able to bring a teaching. You have to be able to bring a truth to mind in order to consciously use it. You see, the thing is, we're always using truth. But until we learn what that truth is, we're kind of using it blindly. So here's truth. I think, therefore I am. Post-truth is I believe, therefore I'm right. How many have heard something like that or experienced somebody like that recently? So Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. It's a very famous saying. George Carlin said, I think I am, therefore I am. I think. And as metaphysicians, I think this is what we should say. I am, therefore I think. So just say that. I am, therefore I think. So we have absolute truth and we have relative truth. So let's talk about that a little bit. So relative truth is that which we pronounce truth from the plane of appearances is relative only. So what we're really saying is we live in a world that's changing and the truth is relative. So like today, I'm saying it's a sunny day. But as soon as it gets cloudy, that's no longer the truth. That truth is relative. The relative truth is constantly changing. And of course, it's based on appearances. It's based on the things we experience from our senses. The absolute truth endures. And what is true today always was and always will be true. And one of the fundamental concepts in unity is that God, the divine, spirit, whatever you want to call it, does not change. And because the divine doesn't change, it's utterly dependable. See, an absolute truth is dependable. A relative truth, it depends on whether it's dependable or not. So the absolute truth endures, and what is true today always was and always will be. Now, I'm just going to notice something here is that in my writings these days, in the last couple of years, I capitalize every letter of a word that is a word that refers to something that is unchangeable. Because for me, fundamentally, this unchanging realm is the divine. So we're going to be exploring some truth. We're going to talk a little bit about God, teachings, the confusion around principle, law, and of course, using truth. So Charles Fillmore said, mind, or define mind in the revealing word. By the term mind, we mean God, the universal principle, which includes all principles. I use this slide in almost every talk to remind people we're not talking about an entity or a being. In fact, Myrtle Fillmore said, God is not a being with parts like man. God is it, neither male nor female, but principle. And so we have three words, at least, just from this one definition, that are synonyms for the divine: mind, God, principle. So what's a principle? Well, from Merriam-Webster, a principle is a comprehensive and fundamental law, doctrine, or assumption. Or a principle is an underlying faculty. So we're going to be talking about some fundamental laws we find in unity. We're going to be talking about some assumptions too. And underlying faculties, well, I really love it that Unity of Kitchener and Unity of Ottawa emphasizes the 12 powers so much. And then what about unity teachings? Well, they're basically premises. They are assumed to be true. And the examples that we most know are the Unity's 5 basic principles. So here's the 5 basic principles in one format. God is absolute good everywhere present. Our very essence is of God. Activity of our thinking creates our experience. Prayer heightens the connection with God mind. And finally, and most importantly, live the truth you know. So that's kind of one of the standard editions. Here's mine. God is principle, present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. And that's kind of a riff on something Eric Butterworth said. We are fully divine and fully human. And I'm moving faster and faster away from this idea that we're trying to escape living here on the earth and escape our humanity. We've got to fully embrace our humanity, just as we've got to fully embrace our divinity. The third one is the activity of our thinking, feeling natures creates our inner experiences. They don't literally create outer things. However, if we get enough head of steam behind what we're thinking and feeling, we will then act based on that inner experience. Prayer synchronizes our humanity with our divinity. Or we could say prayer harmonizes our humanity with our divinity. And this is a very important step in everything. Then, of course, we got to live the truth you know. And as I said earlier, you can't live the truth consciously if you can't bring it consciously to mind. So here they are again. God is principle, present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. We are fully divine and fully human. The activity of our thinking, feeling nature creates our inner experiences. Prayer synchronizes or harmonizes our humanity with our divinity, and live the truth we know. So use the truth you know means consciously using the teachings, principles, and laws you know, because you're already using them unconsciously and sometimes getting some untoward results. And we don't want that at all, do we? So there is this saying, God is good. And then some people say, God is the good. Well, what does this teaching mean? In the revealing word, the definition of all good is divine mind, God, the principle of divine benevolence that permeates the universe. So God isn't good like a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, or God isn't good like a good person. God is the principle, I'll say that again, God is the principle that humans use to be benevolent. So in one of those moments when you're contracting instead of being expansive, in one of those moments when you don't want to be benevolent, you don't want to be generous, you can take a deep breath and you can remember that this principle of benevolence is right there at the point of you. And you can call on that. You can put a demand on it. You can claim benevolence and then act in a more benevolent way. So unity principles include the powers, 12 powers. And the 12 powers and all unity principles are divine ideas. And then, of course, we have principles. Powers, divine ideas, principles. Synonyms, folks. When you're reading the books, don't think that each of these are distinctive things. That's how I got off track. So we already talked about the 12 powers: faith, strength, discernment, love, dominion, imagination, understanding, will, order, zeal, elimination, and life. I like to think of the 12 powers as an operating system of my consciousness, not of my brain, but of my consciousness. So do you notice you have the ability to believe? Do you notice you have the ability to be strong? Do you notice you have the ability to evaluate? Do you notice you have the ability to desire and harmonize? Do you notice you have the ability to have personal authority? Do you notice you have the ability to visualize? Do you notice you have the ability to know? Do you notice you have the ability to choose? Do you notice you have the ability to adjust? Oh my, isn't it great? We have this ability to adjust when we're in a situation we're not particularly happy with. Do you notice you have the ability to be passionate? Do you notice you have the ability to release and let go? And do you notice you have the ability to enliven and energize? Those are the ways in which we use the 12 powers. And I emphasize we use because some people think about the powers being in us and doing something. Really, the 12 powers are more like 12 ingredients that we use to manifest ourselves. And just like the ingredients of a cake in your kitchen, in your pantry, in your refrigerator, can't create a cake. The 12 powers can't really do anything anyway. We are the doers. We are the creators. So here's some more principles to think about. Purity, generosity, beauty, completeness, and abundance. Think about those. How might you use those in your everyday life consciously? So let's talk about some laws. Now, these aren't rules. Remember, we said that the divine or God doesn't change. Well, these laws don't change. They simply are. There's the law of expression, the law of mind action. So what's the law of expression? Charles Fillmore said in Christian Healing, we must learn the law of expression from the abstract to the concrete, from the formless to the formed. I'd say from the infinite to the finite. I would add that to it. So let's look at this a little deeper. So we have a principle or idea, which is abstract and not changeable. And we use principles and ideas to manifest and create an inner experience. And in doing so, we have to take this principle or idea, the powers, for example, and define them in some ways, focus, form, refine, specify them. And once we have that inner experience, we can build up enough inner motivation to take action in the outer realm. And we all know taking action in the outer realm takes a lot more energy than just thinking about the energy, the action. So we take a principle or idea that we're aware of, it's abstract. In our consciousness, we limit it to something more specific. We have an inner experience, which is one manifestation. And then if we act on it, we can do an outer manifestation, which is very concrete and very specific. Have you ever noticed that? That the universe operates specifically. It doesn't operate in general ways. Every last thing you do and think is specific. And then one of our favorites, the law of mind action, is thoughts held in mind with feeling produce more thoughts with feeling of the same kind. And something like this, it's really important, I think, if we put it in the first person. My thoughts held in my mind with feeling produce more thoughts with feeling of the same kind. Where? In my mind. So this tells us how we're growing thought colonies in our consciousness. And if you don't like the thought colony you're building, you stop this train and you start another one. And a starting point is always, always, always with prayer and meditation. So we're synchronizing ourselves, harmonizing our humanity with our divinity so that we start someplace pure. Jesus emphasized that the ruling forces of both heaven and earth are in man. Think about that for a second. And this was found in the 12 Powers, and Charles Fillmore penned it. Jesus emphasized that the ruling forces of both heaven and earth are in me. You see how I made that in the first person? We gotta own this stuff. They're in you. And what's heaven? It's the realm of divine mind. It's not someplace out there. It's right here. It's everywhere. Because heaven is the realm of divine mind, and divine mind is everywhere, present in its entirety, all at the same time. So there's no such thing as being a drop of the divine, a spark of the divine, a wave of the divine, because the entirety of the divine is at the point of view. Now, we might use the idea of a spark to represent how much of our divinity we understand, or a wave represents how much of the divine we know and understand. Unity is all about learning what these things are so we can manage our consciousness in more and more and more optimal ways. And Earth, metaphysically, represents the human mind. And so what does this mean? You and I have absolute dominion over divine mind as well as your humanity. I have absolute dominion over principles and laws as well as my humanity. And we can think of our humanity basically as our thoughts and feelings, where thoughts is an overarching term that mean thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and images, where feeling is an overarching term that represent feelings, emotions, experiences, attitudes, all that stuff. You have absolute dominion. Think about that. You have absolute dominion over divine mind as well as your humanity. I am master of my divinity and myself, said Master Yoda. Let's say that together. I am master of my divinity and myself. And say it one more time. Let's say it zealously. I am master of my divinity and myself. It's time for us to remember this and apply it. When you do that, you will be using the truth you know. And so it is. And thank you once again for inviting me.
Would you like to take us into meditation, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, let's do that. So just notice where you're seated. Just be in the feeling of it. Notice what you're thinking and what your feeling nature is saying within inside of you. As you breathe in and breathe out. And think about, what does it mean when you hear or you think, I am fully divine and fully human? And what does it mean when you think and feel that you are the master of every principle, every law, every thought, and every feeling? Even if it doesn't seem like it. You have been using principle and law your entire life. You have been using principle and law your entire life. The trick is to be conscious of what those principles and laws are. Those principles and laws are the basic fundamental building blocks that we use as an operating system in our consciousness. Feel into that. What does it mean for you if you knew that all of these principles and laws are metaphorically at your fingertips? The truth is, they are permeating every cell and molecule of your body. At that very moment, you're aware that you're going off track some way. Take a deep breath. Remember, you are fully divine and fully human. Bring one of those principles to mind and put it into play. That's how we change our minds. That's how we change those inner experiences. And ultimately, that's how we change the world around us. You are fully divine. You are fully human. And each of you is the master of your divinity and your humanity. And so it is. Amen.